Welcome to our Monday Microsoft Excel. So we've got some people coming on board. We'll get started. Just FYI, we will not be having class on Wednesday. So I'll send that out in a reminder tomorrow. And then we'll get started in just about 5 minutes here. All right, well, if you haven't already, please launch your Microsoft Excel in Office 365 and welcome back on Monday. We are going to create a new document. This is going to be a new workbook for our activities today. And what we're going to work on today is we're going to use a couple advanced formulas. So these can get a little tricky. Up till now, we've done formulas where they basically had one or two variables. This time you're going to get three variables. So this is where the video recording is really come in handy, because if you do get stuck, you can always go back and review them. And the way we do this, or the way to think about it, is you don't have to worry about everything all at once. Just get the one part working, then you add the next part and get that working. So you'll see as we go along. And if you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt me and I can explain more, or we can do a couple practice things. And that's really the way to master these, is to practice. And keeping your workbooks here that on Excel 365 as a reference really comes in handy, because you can see how you did it and remember how it's done, and then just even keep notes on the side. So to get started, I did send you the file with a bunch of data in it. And if you hit the link, it should come up with a 3-worksheet workbook. So this is Breaking Away Bicycle Shop. And you'll see the first page is an invoice, and it's got the layout worked out. So we're going to select A1, and I'm going to go down to I-24. Now I picked column I because I think when we did the columns, see the dark line here in column H, the dark border on the right side? I think that is the border with the right side. Now I could look it up here and it will tell me, but it could also be the dark border in column I. So just to be safe, because it doesn't hurt anything, I select all the way over to I, and then I don't have to bother to look it up. So I'm going to copy it, switch back over to my workbook, and paste. And while we're here, we're going to rename this workbook. This is Excel 8. Oops. I clicked the wrong thing. Here we go. Excel 08. And this is Vlookups. So I'll explain that term in a minute here. It's a formula. So the sheet name, call that invoice. So this will be the main invoice. And I'm sure you've seen invoices like this before. And what you're going to do is send this to the customer. It's going to tell them what they bought and what they owe, right, for the bicycle shop. So how do we know the price of the items? Oh, well, that's where these other two tabs are going to come in. So I'm going to create a new worksheet, create a new tab here. I am going to switch back over to my source here. You'll see it's the one that says inventory. So I'm going to click on inventory. Here's an inventory price list. And this is where we're going to draw our information. So again, I'm going to select A1 down to D30. So this is going to include the item number. Every item in the world now has a number with it, a description, a weight, and a price. Copy that. Switch back over to my second tab. And there we go. Paste in A1. And there's my list. So this one I want to call inventory 2, or inventory as well. For number 3, I want to create a new worksheet here. This is going to be shipping. Because our bike shop is not going to be like Amazon with free shipping everywhere. We're going to actually have to charge for shipping. So I want to go retrieve that. Click on my shipping tab here. This time I actually have 2 tables, 2 data sets. The first here is FedEx, UPS, and Priority Mail. These are their rates. The other thing here to the right is another little itty bitty table. It's only 3 cells across, 2 cells down. It's a code, the code number for each of these shippers. So FedEx is number 2, UPS is number 3, Priority Mail is number 4. And you'll see that happens to also line up with our titles over here, C4 to E4. So that will work out. All right, so I'm going to select from A1 over to column I down to 20. So it's A1 to I20, and that'll cover both of them, or you can move them over individually. You can even set up a separate tab if you wanted to. We just left it here because it kind of helps to explain how this is going to work. So I'm going to copy it, switch back over, and A1 and shipping, I'm going to paste. Okay. So now I'm going to turn back to invoice. So this is what the customer is going to see. This is going to be the worksheet the customer will see. And it's basically going to tell them what they owe, but we want the computer to do some lookups for us. So we're going to change some formatting, and then we're going to have to know the item number. So like if they call in, sometimes you call in like a home shopping network, you can give the item number. And then we want the computer to look up the description, the weight, and the price. So you see we've got description, unit price. All right, it's going to look those up and bring those back off that item number. Then it's also going to calculate the shipping based on the total weight. How's that for snazzy? And it's going to find this information over here under the inventory and the shipping. So let's go to the inventory tab. First, let's clean that up a bit here. I'm going to stretch things out so I can read it. Now, to be honest with you, what we're going to do, this doesn't have to be legible at all because the computer is going to use this. It's going to use this for its research. But I want to stretch it up so we can see it nicely. So this is a list of all the items we sell. And I told you we have a weight and a unit price. That should sound familiar. So this is where the computer is going to find the information. So we have description, weight, and unit price. Then once that's calculated, it's going to calculate all the weight of the order. And then we're going to move to the shipping tab. The computer is going to come over here and look up how much it's going to cost in shipping. Now the customer is going to have options on the shipping. And if you've ever bought anything online and you had to ship it, you will see that different companies have different rates. So we've got FedEx, UPS, Priority Mail, and you could have more. Just like that. All right, so that way we can see it. And again, for this list, unless you're going to make changes to this, the computer doesn't care how legible it is. I could have it all scrunched in, and I could even list this on the invoice tab and then not print it. It's a non-printing area. That's fine too. However, for doing this exercise, I think it's kind of nice to have them separated just so that you remember what's where. All right, speaking of what's where, if I go back to inventory, you'll see I've got the Breaking Away Bike Shop and current price list as my my logo. So it's A2 to D3. I want to copy that, and let's bring that over to invoice because our invoice here is looking pretty plain. So I'm going to click on C1 and paste, and then I'm going to change current price list to customer invoice. There we go. That looks nice. Then I'm going to take cell C1 through H1 and select it and merge and center. And I'm going to do the same thing for C2 to H2, merge and center. So, oops, that's okay. I think I have some spaces in there. So it says it found some spaces, and you might get that too if you copied it. Let me undo. Here's where that came from. If I click on cell G2 and delete, H2 and delete, and even F2 and E2 and D2. Well, there can't be anything in D2 because I wouldn't be able to see the word invoice, right? Now merge and center it, I won't get that error. Ta-da. So like I said before, spaces are something. So if somebody hit the space bar, like I'm in G2, hit the space bar, hit enter, it doesn't look like anything's there until I try to merge it. When I go to merge and center, I get this error. Merging cells only keeps the upper left-hand value and discards everything else. Basically, are you sure you want to do this? Yes, I am. And click OK, because I'm not losing any information, just spaces. Now you'll notice this time when we did our title, I did 2 merges and centers. Whereas before, we're doing a whole block. That's because I want each line, like Breaking Away Bicycle Shop, to be merged and centered, but I still want it separate and distinct from the phrase customer invoice. So I did end up having to do this twice. On the desktop version, you can do the merge and center of the first one, and then select the cells of the bottom one and hit redo, and it will also merge and center. So that's a little shortcut. But either way, now that looks kind of nice. And we got nice blue and gold writing here. So we're ready to go. All right, so the first thing we're going to tackle is this a taxable customer? So our bike shop works with the public, and it also works with resellers. So the way it works is resellers, especially in California, do not have to pay sales tax when they buy stuff that they're going to sell to somebody else. Because the way it works in California and everywhere else is only the end user pays the sales tax. Somebody has to pay the tax, but it's only the one who ends up with the product to keep forever. So like if we're selling a bike, if it's going to somebody who has a little store and they're offering bikes, then they're not taxable, right? When you do the QuickBooks class, you'll learn that if that's true, then they need to give you a document that proves it, so you don't get in trouble for not collecting sales tax. However, if it's somebody who walks in off the street and they're buying a bike for their kids, then they're going to keep it and they're not going to resell it, then they are taxable. So what's going to happen is in the box next to it, cell F3, somebody's going to type in yes. If they're not taxable, they'll leave it blank. All right. So this is what it would look like. They can say yes or Y, it doesn't matter. It has really, here's what it really needs. It has to be something in F3. All right. So if they're taxable, we want to show the tax rate in H3, right? So what I could do is just type in 7.88%, right? That would be the tax rate. But here's the thing I want to do. I don't want it to show any tax rate. I want to show nothing if this is not taxable, right? I want it to be blank. So how to do that? Well, here we go. We're going to use an if formula. So it starts off with an equal sign, and then you can use the functions. And if you scroll down, you'll see if it's not in your commonly used, and you can find it through all, or you could type out the word if. This one by itself is pretty simple. So it's sign if, and then there's a left parenthesis. And now you'll see the format pop up. It says logical test, value of true, value of false. So the first thing we need to do is what they call a logical test. We need to look at a cell and ask the question. So the cell we want to look at is F3. So the question is F3 greater than 0, right? If it's nothing, 0, then no tax. If there is something in there, like the word yes, then you want to charge the sales tax. So here's what we're going to do. If F3 greater than 0, put a comma, that stands for then. We're going to say 7.88%. Then another comma. What if it's not true? What if there's nothing in it? Then we want to show nothing. You could put a 0 here, that'd be fine, but then it will show a 0 in your tax rate. If you want tax rate to be empty, the way you say empty to Excel is you do 2 quotes, quote, quote. Oops, I typed it and it didn't show up. There it goes. See how there's nothing between those? So that's empty. right? Close parenthesis. Let's hit enter and see if it worked. Okay, so our tax rate looks blank and you think, oh no, it's not working. Except, let's go to F3 and type in the word yes. Ta-da! There it shows up. Okay, so there's nothing there, it won't show it. If you type in the word yes, it will. Let's center F3 horizontally here, just so it stands out a bit. Oops, I did it vertically. I meant center horizontally. There we go. And that's how it works. Okay, now, remember this is a class exercise. You'd have to train your staff because here's a little flaw in our logic right now. If I said taxable customer, oh no, I'll type in the word no. Watch what happens. Yeah, because remember I said if F3 is greater than 0, meaning there's something in there, it could be a number, it could be a letter. If I put in the word 5, see I get a tax rate. So it is greater than 0, right? Then it does the tax rate. So even the word no will bring up a tax rate. So if I want to make it a little bit more complicated, I can edit my formula here and I can say instead of greater than 0, meaning basically if something's in the box, then charge sales tax. If I want it to look for the word, I can say quote YES, end quote. Now, the only thing that's going to trigger it is the word yes. Ta-da, even capital letters, right? If I say no, no tax rate. So now we're even more advanced. So now I can look for something specific. However, here comes the flaw. Somebody says, are they taxable? Oh yes, I'll put a Y here. Y is not YES. So you see, again, the computer is very literal. It has to be an exact match to whatever's in the quotes. Well, I shouldn't say exact. Other than cup or lowercase, it has to match the contents of the quotes. So even a yeah is not going to do it. All right. If you want to get more advanced, there is a way that you can look for the first letter of the word type in here to be a Y and then make it show up, right? Or you just train your staff, look, if they're taxable, say yes. Okay, see how that works? So it's 2 options. You'll notice that as we add the options, the formula gets just a little bit longer. So I'll leave it that way. But, you know, if you had it back to F3 greater than 0, that works too. Just make sure that if it's not taxable, that's left blank. So see the difference and see how if statements work? They're handy because it's conditional. You say to the computer, if one thing's true, do this. If it's not true, do that. They also call them if, then, else. I'm going to switch it back to my yes. So in this case, if it's true, do this. If it's not true, or else or otherwise, do that. All formulas like this, you can kind of invert it. So instead of saying if it's equal yes, you could also flip these and you could say it this way. If F3 as a yes or no, all right, is not equal to yes, then show nothing. And otherwise, if it is equal to yes, do the 7.88%. And now, see, no won't trigger it. Yep. So it's kind of like the inverse. See how that works? So again, these can get really complicated. And the good part is, you know, you test them, you get it working like we did just now. And then once you get it working, you're done. And then you can go on to other things. And so like when I started, I made it very simple. And then I add a little more complication. But I wanted to show you there are more than one way to do things with Excel. So I'm going to switch back to my other formula. Just do a couple undos here. And I'm going to say, I'm going to use the equals. So somebody has to type in the word yes. Not just a Y, yes. Great. There it goes. Any questions on that so far? I'm good. We're going to use it again later, so that's why I asked. All right. So now we've got our customer name here. I want to take cell D5 and E5, and I want to merge and center these. That way there's more room for the customer name. I'm going to do the same thing for D6 and E6, merge and center, and D7 and E7. So again, this gives us 3 independent lines. I could have done it as one block, but in this case, I want the independent line. So as somebody's typing it in here, see, they can do this, and then they can do the address and get separate lines. So that's why the merge and center is separate. I am going to select from D5 now to E7, and I want to put a solid border around it because I kind of messed up the border with my merger. So we'll just do that. All right, so now we're down to the nitty-gritty of the invoice. I want to select item number, description, weight, unit price, unit purchased, and total price. So that's C10 to H10. And I do want to wrap my text, and I want to center it. So even when my wrapping, the word description doesn't quite fit, but I can widen it up. For our purposes, I think I'm going to change weight here and spell it out, because now I got room. Column F, I want to stretch out. And column G, just a little bit. And same with column H. That way it'll give us more room for the numbers, and they'll stand apart and won't be as confusing. Okay, so here's what my goal is. I want to turn this over to the clerks who are going to maybe take a phone call and take an order. What they're going to need is the item number for the customer. So they're going to type an item number in here. So it's a 4-digit number, right? But like 1032 or whatever it is. Then I want the computer to come over here to inventory and try to find it. So what it's going to do is go through my list here and say, is this it? Is this it? Is this it? No, no. Oh, here it is, 1032. And then I want to tell it, bring back the description. Okay, so here's how we do that. It's called a Vlookup. So you notice as I went through here, as I was going through, I went down vertically, right? That's why it's Vlookup. Stands for vertical lookup. So it'll thumb through and try to find it. You want to have distinct numbers. If the same number shows twice, like once down here, the computer stops as soon as it finds it and doesn't bother to see if there's another one. So they have to be distinct. A lot of times these days, companies use those UPC codes that are at the bottom of just about every package now. And actually, those are kind of handy. If you ever want to find something that's hard to find, if you have the UPC code for it, you can even use Google. And Google goes out and scours all the sites, including eBay, Amazon, Walmart, the works, everybody. And if that number shows up, it'll come back in search results and you can find out where to buy it. So we found things that way. But we want the computer to do this for us. So here's how we're going to start off. We're going to start off with a Vlookup. So Vlookups have 3 elements. All right. It's going to have the element of the table, the inventory table, that is the one we're going to use. It has to compare something to it. And that's going to be this number. And then it's going to bring back the associated description. So here's how it goes. So we're going to start off with an equal sign. You can type in Vlookup or use the function here. And you might have to use all to find it, at least the first time. But you'll see here, it looks kind of complicated, and it's not uncomplicated, but it says lookup value table array, column index number. It's really just 3 items. And then once you get the hang of it, it makes a little bit of logic here. So it's going to be VLOOKUP. Okay, the first thing I want to do is say, all right, computer, I want you to look up something, and here's where I want you to look. So I'm going to click on the tab Inventory, and I'm going to start at the first item, not the item number header. I'm going to leave that off, just the numbers, and all the way down. So I started at A6, and I'm scrolling down to A30. And you'll see here at the top of my window, the computer did it. All right, that's good so far. Comma. So, as complicated as that looks, we know what it is. It's just this table over here in inventory. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is bring back which item. So in our sample, we want to bring back column 2. How do I know it's column 2? If I look on here, I count over from the left. Oops. I clicked on my pen and I lost it here. So I clicked over here and I look. So I selected from CA, so that's column 1. Description, that's column 2. Weight, that's column 3. Unit price, that's column 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You never ever bring back column 1. And I wouldn't want to. Why do I want to bring back 1032? I already know that number. I put it in. So it's always 2 through whatever. And you can have as many columns as you want. So I goofed up my VLOOKUP. Let me go back and do that again. Oh, and see, I did it wrong. I skipped it. I went the wrong way. So between the parentheses and the apostrophe for the tab name inventory, I actually wanted to put in cell C11, comma. So it's C11, and I'm telling the computer, look up whatever's in C11, go to the inventory, cells A6 through D30, and bring back column 2. I'm going to hit enter. And look what happened. I'm going to widen up column D here. Child's helmet large. Oh, let's see if it got it right. Let's go to inventory. I'm going to scroll down. There it is, 1032. Look what's in column 2. Child's helmet L. Once you have this working, you can make changes here, and the computer will update your invoice with the new changes. So for example, I just spelled out the word large and ta-da, it automatically updated. So it's kind of like a link, but it's always a search. Let's try another one. What's another good number here? Go far to the bottom. A 2027. Let's try a 2027, see what happens. 2027. Ta-da, Mountain Magic 22. All right, see how that works? So that is what I'm going to do for weight, because if I look over here in inventory, my first column is the item number, but the next one's the description, and then we have the weight of the item. So we want to bring that back. So it's going to be the same, almost the exact same formula. It's just that last column number. So here we go. Equal sign, VLOOKUP. Left parentheses. And I still want to look at C11 because that's the item number. All of our columns are going to use that item number. It's really important. Comma. I'm going to use the same inventory table over here. So it's A6 down to D30. comma, 3, close parentheses. All right, it says 70 pounds. Let's find out who was right. So item number 2027, I go to inventory, let's check it out. Here's 2027, there's a mountain bike, and sure enough, it's 70 pounds. That's the heaviest thing we have. So it did it. It thumbed through, it went down here and said, I'm looking, I'm looking, I'm looking, I'm looking. And ta-da, I found it. Okay, now what column? 3. 1, 2, 3. There it is, 70. And it brought it back. Units purchased is how many they want to buy. Okay, so that's actually not going to be a lookup. That's going to be up to the customer. Next, we got unit price. That is going to be a lookup. Back to inventory again. So that's the 4th column. So here's how we fix that. All we have to do is one more VLOOKUP. So equal sign, VLOOKUP. And again, C11, that's my item number, comma, same thing over here, A6 through D30, comma, column 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the price. Hit enter, there it is. See how that worked? So we did a VLOOKUP to look up description, weight, and price. Let's change the number and see what happens. Yeah, it did it. It went back here to inventory, thumbed through the list till it found 1032. There it is, and then it brought back description, weight, and price. And you see it did it really fast. If I were trying to do that, I'd be very slow at it. But the computer, that's one thing it really is good at, is looking up things quickly. All right. So that's how VLOOKUP works. In fact, these formulas are so similar. Here's a little shortcut. I didn't want to do the shortcut because we're practicing, but I can select all of this under description, right, and copy it. Now I told you, my weight, I can paste in here. It's the exact same formula. It's that last column number is 3. And then I can do the same thing for unit price. Paste it up here. And now that column number is 4. So you could do it that way. I wanted to practice just because it's got to kind of get used to it. See how that works? All right. I hope so. Because now we're going to find there's a bit of a problem. So I have to do that for every single one of these boxes here in the description. Same with weight and same with unit price. So I could fill handle it, right? Well, let's see what happens. I'm going to grab it, fill handle it down to D20. And look at that, I get a bunch of NAs. Not only that, I can look up here. Let me try it again. I'm going to put the same number in. It should come up back with the same description. So it did. Why is it showing these NAs? Here's why. The VLOOKUP, I'm going to click on this one. So I'm on D13. So the VLOOKUP says, okay, go to C13. What's in there? I don't see anything in there. So, okay, I got to find nothing in this inventory list. When I find it, there's nothing. There's no nothings, right? There's all somethings. So it comes up with an error until somebody keys one in. Then if they start keying them in, it would. It's 1167. Let's try that. See, then it cleans it up. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to fix that. So let's go back to our first one. Let me wipe these out. Distracting. All right, so what do we have to do to change this? Well, one thing is, if you notice, oops, when I fill handle down here, right here, the inventory, A6 to D30, right? when I fill handled it down, look what it did. It advanced each of those numbers, A7 to D31, A8 to D32. All right, so what's happening is it's sliding down the list. So the first time it started here and looked down. The second time it started here at A7 and looked down. So remember, that's that fill handle thing. So we know how to fix that. That's our absolutes. So that's the easy part here. So we'll just put absolutes around A and 6. I don't really have to do column A, but I will. I think I told you this when we did absolutes. You don't have to do them both because we're just going vertically, but I will because it doesn't hurt anything. And then you don't have to think about vertical and horizontal and all that. So what this is telling the computer now is no matter, oops, cancel that. So no matter what you do, computer, always, as I fill handle this, always use A6 to D30, right? So when I fill handle that down, now I don't have that problem anymore. As I click on them, see it, oops, went too far. It worked. So that's the good news. So that part worked. So at least technically now we're right. And you'll notice our formula got just a little bit longer. So now it's 4 characters longer. But I still have this problem of NA, right? All right, well, let's get rid of that. And then just to keep in good practice, I'm gonna go to weight. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna put $sign, oops, $sign before the A and $sign before the 6. That locks in cell A6 on the inventory tab. And the same thing for D30. But bring back column 3, and that's correct. So that one will fill handle correctly because I don't want to do this for every one of these boxes here. I want the computer to do some work here. So let's go to unit price, same deal. Those are absolutes. Could I have done this when I was doing the formula? Yes. In fact, most of the times you do. When you're doing a Vlookup, almost always, as you're selecting the table array, you're going to put in the absolutes. All right, so now let's fix that NA problem, because that's not pretty. So we got the big old NA. So here's how to do it. Now remember we did the if statement, right? So we are going to do what's called an embedded formula, meaning this VLOOKUP is going to be embedded into an if statement. So let's refresh real quick. Remember up here on the tax rate, if something is true, do this. If it's not, do that. Well, that's what we're going to do here. I'm going to click between the equal sign and the VLOOKUP, and I'm just going to start typing it. But you'll notice I got my VLOOKUP working. I want to make sure that's right. So now I know this whole statement here is correct. All I have to do is put in my if statement. So equal sign, if, left parenthesis. I want to look at C11. And again, I'm going to say C11 greater than 0. Okay. If it is, so comma, VLOOKUP. And I have my VLOOKUP already there. That's handy. If it's not, so I have to go to the end of the parenthesis and put a comma. Then I want to show nothing. Quote, quote. Close parentheses. You'll notice I have 2 sets of parentheses now. That's okay. You have a lot of parentheses, especially in embedded statements. I'm going to hit enter. Came back with the same result, so it's still working, but now watch when I handle it down. I click on cell C12. Hey, it looks like it's empty. But it's not. It's got my formula in here, but it doesn't say NA anymore. There's no error. So it's nice and clean. Somebody comes along and types in a number in cell C12. It does a lookup, child helmet medium. If it's empty, it shows nothing. See how that works? In Excel, this is one of the most complicated maneuvers you can do, is embed formulas within other formulas. Because, as I told you before, Excel can give you errors, but it won't tell you exactly what's wrong. Or what's worse is I'm going to click back here on D11. I'm going to sabotage my formula. Let's say instead of 2, I accidentally hit 5. Okay, I hit enter. I got a reference. Like, what? Where did that come from? So what you have to do is you have to go and debug your formula with the if statements and the VLOOKUPs. And it doesn't tell you there's a problem in your VLOOKUP. It could be in the if statement. So you have to go through it and fix it. That's why I like to work from basically the middle out. Get the VLOOKUP working right. Okay, that works. Now I'll do the if statement around the VLOOKUP. And then if I had another one, put that in around my if statement. Okay, so I go to debug it. Oh yeah, there's a problem. It's supposed to be a 2. And it's back. So here's the beauty of it, is now I can fill handle this down all the way. And it looks like, oh, that didn't do anything, except, let me pick a new number. Let's go to the very bottom. What's the last? 2317. I decided to put it here for some reason. Ta-da, it did it. Now we're also going to have to deal with a weight issue, or not a weight issue, but the VLOOKUP with weights. So let's do that one. We're going to do an embedded VLOOKUP statement in an if statement. And yes, these are pretty amazing. When you get them working, I mean, that's, as you see, it can be kind of a headache to get it started. Look how long this got. But if you just do it step by step, one step at a time, say, well, I'm going to get this working, then I'm going to add this. It works. All right, so let's do the weight. So we have the VLOOKUP working, but as we try to fill handle, there's that problem. So that's okay. We get to practice if statements again. So I'm going to click between the equal sign and the V. So if, left parenthesis, and here's the good news. It's the exact same thing as far as the if statement. If C11 is greater than 0, meaning some numbers there, comma, meaning then do VLOOKUP. If not, or otherwise, comma, put nothing. Close parentheses. Okay. Oh, good. I can fill handle that down. It looks like nothing, but we can test it. There it is. So that one's working. All right, real quick, we'll do the same thing for unit price. If, left parenthesis, C11 greater than 0, comma, then do the VLOOKUP. If it's not, do nothing. Now I could have put a 0 here, but then it'll display 0 all over my invoice. So I don't want that. There it goes. And fill handle this down. And then we'll test it here. Test another one. Same number. If it's working, it should come out with the same numbers, and they do. And you can look in the inventory, and that's what it did. But if this is empty, then you get that. All right, if there's no questions on that, it is 6:54. It's break time. We'll take a 10-minute break and come back at 7:04. And we'll do more VLOOKUPs, and then we're going to do Hlookup. It's just like a VLOOKUP, but it's the other direction. Thank you for letting me know I was on mute. I said some wonderful things and you all missed it. No, I'm kidding. I messed up. All right, so let me undo what I did here. So here is what I was doing. I was saying that the flaw here is if you have an alphabetic character in here, so like they're supposed to put in the customer name here, but sometimes, I'm sure you've done this, you click on the cell and you're looking at the customer name, but when you start typing the name, Bob shows up here, right? And you say, oh no, that's not where it goes. When they remove the name Bob, because they're going to put up here customer, sometimes the tendency is to hit the space bar and hit enter. As I told you before, even though it's invisible, space bar is something. And there's no tool in Excel like there is in Word to show spaces. Remember the paragraph show hide mark? So then they go up here, okay, here's Bob, but what do I do down here? Well, what happens is you can't use the space bar and hit enter and expect it to disappear. It looks like it's gone, but you actually have to hit the delete key. So I'm going to delete now. And there it goes. Even if I had Bob here. Okay, now I'll take care of it. The other option is you can embed this statement into another if statement that looks for alphabetic characters in here. And if there are alphabetic characters, it completely disregards them. So only numbers. You can also tell it to only accept numbers of a certain range. What would be the range? Oh, I don't know, from 1021 to 2317, because those are item numbers. So there are ways to do that. Like I said, they get more complex, or just train your order takers. Hey, make sure that this stays empty. And if you put anything in there, use delete to remove it, not the space bar. Okay, then they should do it right. All right, so I'm going to put the number back in just as a sample. I like having a sample to make sure my formulas are working. And now I know as long as I can get this line working, the other lines are just copies of it. So make sure this is right. So the idea is they're going to come along as an order taker. They're going to type in the item number, and then how many do they want? Well, let's say they want 2. Okay, so this math is something we've done before. It's basically units purchased times unit price. So equal sign F11 times G11. 4250. Oh, good. Looks easy, right? But here's the thing. As we fill handle this down, because the unit price now here actually has something, in this case, it's a formula, watch what happens. So I take my 4250. Oh yeah, that's working right. I fill handle down. What happened? That's because it doesn't know how to multiply whatever this equation is times empty. So we got to fix that too. So I'm going to delete this. And you notice I hit the delete key, not the space bar, of course. All right, so this is the right formula, but we want to put a condition that basically, if C11 is empty, display nothing. If it's not empty, do the formula. So all we got to do is slip an if statement in here. Now, this way, I'm going to do a little different technique. Rather than clicking between the equal sign and the F and start typing, I'm just going to select F11 to G11 and cut it, Control X. That puts it in my clipboard. All right, I could have done it the same way I did before, but this is just a little variation. So it's always if sign, or the if statement, if, left parenthesis, and it's going to be C11 again. It all goes to C11. If C11 is greater than 0, okay, comma, do the math. What's the math? Oh, I can paste it in here and it's all done for me. I don't have to think. F11 times G11. Otherwise, comma, show nothing. Close parentheses. All right. So it didn't change my 4250 at all. That makes sense because there is a number there. But watch what happens when that number disappears with the delete key. Oh, I wouldn't have any units purchased either. That was me typing it in. Ta-da! Okay, so somebody comes along. I want a 1032, and I want 2 of them. 2. Here's the total price. So that one's working. Let's handle that all the way down. And it looks like I did nothing, but let's try another order here. And you'll notice, there's no math here. It does show up with the $sign. So it's saying is, okay, you told me if whatever's in column C has something in it that's greater than 0, I'm supposed to do something, but there's nothing under units purchased. So 0 times 2125 is 0. Let's say they want to do 3 of these again. Then it does the math. Okay, so there we go. That's using the if statement again. And as I click on these, I can see what's in there. Okay. So now I want to do a total of the invoice. Well, we know how to do that. That's the easiest thing in the world. We have the sum. And sure enough, I can put AutoSum in there. It's going to sum up the column H11 through H20 and hit enter. And it did it. It's working. This one, see, I can take this out. I don't have to worry about it. If there's nothing in the total, then you'll see the total is just a little dash. That's the display because we're using the accounting format. When somebody does put one in there, then it works. Okay, now we want to charge them sales tax. Again, this one's pretty easy. It's equals the 4250 total, whatever's in that total box, times, and then we go back to when we started the class. What's our tax rate? Here, 7.88%. So I'm going to click on H4. So it's equal sign H21 times H. Oh, I missed H3. I said 4. So again, that's why it pays to click on the cell instead of just thinking, oh, I know it's an H4. If I type H4, I would have been way wrong. So that's okay. And done. 335. Well, let's say now the customer is not taxable. I take out my word yes, tax rate disappears, so this now has an error. Oh, that's okay, because we know how to fix it. Here's what we're going to do. This time, I'll slip the if statement around my calculation instead of cut and paste it. So, either way works just fine. It just kind of what depends on what your thinking process is. So if left parenthesis. This time, though, I do want to look at the tax rate. So that was H3. If it's greater than 0, then do the math. Otherwise, show nothing. So again, I use my double quotes to say nothing. And then I had my math means if there's something in there, do it. If not, nothing. Oops, I meant this time. Oh, okay, my mistake. So there is something in H3. It's that if statement. So I did it wrong. So what happens is I basically have to borrow this if statement. So it's if this F3 has a yes in it, then I want to charge sales tax down here. So I'm going to change this. If H3 equals yes, then do the math. If not, put a 0. Okay, Let me try putting a yes. Here's my tax rate. Oops, it didn't work. Oh, see what I did? I was looking at my math and I said H3. Remember I told you about clicking instead of using your own eye? I use my eye. So it's F3 is yes. There it is. So there is the tax, 7.88%. Let's say no to tax, take it out. And now it's 0. So you see what I did wrong? Put it back in here. Oops, here's it. I'm gonna move this over. So I'm gonna select the phrase taxable customer. The way it ended up, it's kind of confusing. And I'm gonna right align it in column E3. That'll keep me from making mistakes anymore. All right, so F3 is the one that has to have a yes. When it does, we get a tax rate. When there's a tax rate, you'll see in cell H22, it says, okay, there is a yes there, go for it. Multiply H21 times H3. When there is no yes, that's funny. When there's not a yes in that box, there is no tax rate here, and this comes out to 0. So we're gonna tax this person just to keep practice. Like I said, I like to have it with some numbers to practice with. Make sense? So, again, these are getting a little complicated here because now this tax rate is based on this word, and the word also influences whether the tax is showing up here. So that's why we did this exercise this way, just to try a little complication. Now that you've got VLOOKUPs down, let's do a little razzle dazzle with HLOOKUPs. Now it comes to shipping. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Our stores policy is to only ship or charge shipping for the first item. So as long as they pay that, we have deals with the shipping managers that anything else they add, if they like buy 2 of an item, we won't charge them double the shipping. So that'll be nice for the customers. So what we need to do down here for total shipping is add up the total shipping. Well, this one's easy. Throw friend sum. So this is going to be sum E11 through E20. And I can even double check it. Yeah, that's another 2 pounds. So there we go, total 4 pounds. All right, so that's working. So now, how much are we going to charge them for shipping? Well, it's going to make a difference up here when they select the shipping carrier. So in cell H6, you have to choose the shipping carrier, and we only have 3 to choose from. I'm going to click on my shipping tab. So they have to choose FedEx, UPS, or Priority Mail. So let's say they select UPS. So they're going to type it here. Now we want the computer to look up the code number here. What's the code number? Well, UPS is code 3, FedEx is code 2, Priority Mail is code 4. So each one has their own number. You'll notice these numbers and these titles and numbers go horizontally this way, not vertically this way like we did before. So this is going to require what's called an HLOOKUP, which, as you can imagine, H stands for horizontal lookup, and it works exactly the same, except you're going across instead of down. That said, we're going to click on cell H7, and we're going to use the text. So with lookups, you can also use text instead of numbers when you're doing your references. So on H7, I'm going to click equals, and it's going to be VLOOKUP, left parenthesis, and I want it to look at cell H6. That's where we're going to type in UPS. So I click on H6, saying, all right, computer, look up that. Oh, and I've already made my first mistake. Did you catch it? What did I say we were doing? I said we were doing HLOOKUPs, but I typed in Vlookup. That would not work. And to be honest with you, I was going to tell you when we're done, HLOOKUPs aren't very common. Almost always, it's a Vlookup. All right, so it's HLOOKUP. H6, here, oops, comma. So I'm saying look at H6, and then I want you to compare it to the shipping tab, cells G6 through I7. Oh, pardon me, I6. I really messed up, G5 to I6. So anyway, it did it right, I read it wrong. So I'm saying cells G5 to I6, comma, and this time row 2. How do I know row 2? You'll see FedEx, UPS, priority mail. That's my first row in my selection. So the one below it must be row 2. I don't have a row 3, 4, or 5. I could, but I don't. I hit enter, and let's see if it worked. It says UPS is code 3. Let's look up shipping. There's UPS, and it's code 3. So see, VLOOKUPs work exactly the same as HLOOKUPs. So once you master VLOOKUPs, you kind of know HLOOKUPs. But rarely do people use HLOOKUPs. So you might say, well, but so rare. Why did you put it in this exercise? You know why? Why do people climb mountains? Because they're there, and because there is an HLOOKUP. So we wanted everybody to know, you know, VLOOKUPs. Hey, you have another tool, HLOOKUPs. Same way. Let's try changing this up. Yep, there it goes. FedEx says it's number 2. Is that true? Yeah, it is true. It got it. To be honest with you, if I were doing this for real, I wouldn't even make this HLOOKUP. I wouldn't do it horizontally. I would copy it. And then when you paste, remember we have the paste transpose. I would use my paste transpose and do it this way and do a VLOOKUP. See, it's the same data, just stacked up. So that's just me. But there you go. That's how HLOOKUPs work. The advantage to these VLOOKUPs, as you can imagine, is like our chart here goes from 2 pounds to 75 pounds. But you know, it might go up in increments to 10,000 pounds. So we could have a long title here. Look at our inventory. It's kind of long. We have a lot of items, but we could have triple these, you know, a couple hundred items, thousands of items. I'm sure you've been to the grocery store and you have seen how many thousands of items, and each one has its own number. Those VLOOKUPs are really handy, and almost always they're in a vertical column, just like this. So you've got the item name or the number, and then the associated description and other details. Very rarely does it go across the screen horizontally. But we wanted to do that just for fun, and it works. So let's go back to invoice. This one I'm not going to copy or fill handle, so I don't have to put my absolutes with the dollar signs. I could, but this is it. We're done. It's doing its job. It's going to look up that number. Let's take a look at our shipping tab. You'll see by no coincidence, the number underneath the name of the shipper happens to correspond to the column in our shipping calculator here. Meaning the first one here is yellow. That's the weight. Then column 2 is FedEx. Well, sure enough, that's column 2 in our little tab over here. UPS, it's column 3. So I go 1, 2, 3. There's UPS. Sure enough, in our lookup, it's column 3. And then priority mail, column 4. So that was done on purpose. Now we're ready to calculate the shipping. So I'm going to click back here in invoice. So what I wanted to do is do a VLOOKUP. We're back to VLOOKUPs. And I want to tell the computer, I want to look up whatever's in this total shipping, find it, and bring back the same column that tells you column number here. So let's start a VLOOKUP. equal sign, Vlookup, left parentheses. What are we comparing? We're comparing the total shipping. That's in cell E21. Comma. Where do I want to find it? Over here in the shipping tab, cell B5, down to E20. Comma. Now this time, I'm not going to tell it what number in the formula. I want it to find it back in my invoice tab, way up here, cell H7, close parenthesis. So see, I'm going to click on the formula now. It's working. See what it did? It does a VLOOKUP. It says whatever's in E21, it's going to find it. It's going to go over to shipping. So 2 pounds. It's going to find 2. Ah, there it is. And then it's going to bring back whatever column is represented here. In this case, FedEx. So let's see if it got it right. Shipping. FedEx is column 2, $2. That should be $7.25. Yeah, it did it. Well, let's see. Maybe I don't want to do FedEx. Maybe I want to do UPS. That's column 3. If you look down here, the shipping says $7 for UPS. I'm going to click on my shipping tab and check it out. Sure enough, there it is. Now you'll notice here in our shipping, we've got the dollar formats. It's all in currency. On the invoice, my shipping here is in general. So let's change that. I was using accounting, so let's stay with accounting. And there we go. See how that works? A little razzle dazzle here. So we've got the Hlookup here to determine the code number. And the code number going here as H7 in our formula. How's that for snazzy? And then our final calculation is down here, the final cost. And this one of the first ones we learned, this sum, except as I said, it doesn't always lasso correctly, and it didn't include my total. I want to select all 3 cells, hit enter. Here's the total order, $52.85. See how that works? So like I said, if you can just, get VLOOKUPs down, I would personally turn this into a vertical column set and then just use that. When you're using these lookups though, they can be words. However, once again, if I type in up and don't type in UPS correctly, see, it guessed. So it does make a difference. It has to be an exact match to really be sure. The other thing is, you will notice here, our shipping is 2 pounds. If I click on my shipping over here, I'm going to intentionally mess it up. I'm going to say the total shipping, instead of adding it up, is 3 pounds. So now let's look at the shipping tab. Well, I don't have a 3 here. I got a 2 and a 5. All right. So back in my invoice, it has a 3 for UPS. And it brought back 7. Let's see what it did. So it was 3. So it's somewhere in between here. And it was UPS. Oh, well, that wasn't helpful because they're both 7. What's another one? I'm going to change it to, let's make it 8. So let's say the total is 8. You'll notice I came back with $7 shipping. If I look at my shipping here, see, I don't have an 8 in my column here. It's between the 5 and the 10. So what it does, it finds the closest one and stops looking. So that's why it brought the 7 back instead of the 1150. So, I could change that. All I got to do is insert a column here and put an 8 and whatever the shipping cost would be for that. But just know that when it can't find a number, it'll keep searching. And then when it comes to the closest number, like in this case, the gap, it'll bring back the first number and stop looking. And you see that can happen a lot down here because they're going by 5-pound increments. So anything in between the two, would not be exactly right. And that could cost you money if your shipper decides they're going to charge you So I'm going to undo to make sure that's a total. And that's essentially how VLOOKUPs and HLOOKUPs work. Any questions? Okay, well, now that we got it working, I'm going to set this up for a person to come in and start using it. So I'm going to take out the UPS, the shipping carrier, and I'll leave that blank. Look what happened below. My HLOOKUP, NA. Okay, so guess what we need? Another if statement. It's going to work just like the VLOOKUPs. So I'm going to say if, left parenthesis, H6 greater than 0, comma, do the HLOOKUP, comma, for otherwise, show nothing. There it goes. Let's make sure it's still working. I'll type in UPS and let's see if it comes up with a number. Yep. There you go. So that keeps it clean. And then I want to take out the item number and the units purchased. We have another NA. Now, you get to choose how fussy you want to be, because only your internal staff are going to see this. No customer would ever see this NA there. But you never know, somebody might get freaked out. And we know how to fix that. However, you could just leave it there because you know something has to be here in order for this document to ever be used. And they'd have to say how many they're going to get. So, but just to fix that, let's go into this NA. Now you'll notice we have two of them, NA and the final cost. Here's what happens. Whenever you have a hashtag NA, it will mess up sums, because how much is an error, an NA? It doesn't know. So that's why this one's here. That's why you got two. There's actually nothing wrong with the final cost, and I can prove it by changing my shipping just to 0 and see it updated correctly. So all my problems come from shipping. We're going to fix that with an if statement. So on cell H23, my VLOOKUP, I'm going to put one more if statement. If, left parenthesis. Now I have a choice. I can either look at the weight or I want to look at the carrier. So it could be either way, because what's going to happen is you have to have a carrier for it to engage. And you also have to have a weight. You know, if any of those things are empty, it's not going to work. But I'm going to do the carrier. So I'm going to go to H6. If it's greater than 0, then, so it's a comma, do the VLOOKUP. Otherwise, show nothing. Actually, in this case, nothing, 0. The reason I'm going to use 0 is because it's a number. You know, the sum will get messed up and look like an NA again if I don't put the number. Ta-da! And by fixing that shipping issue, which is now represented by a dash for the 0, see the final cost came in. Now it's set and ready to go. While we're here at final cost, I did wipe out my bottom border. So I'm going to click on the border and just tell it, stick one at the bottom, just to close up my boxes. All right, let's test it out. I'll pick 2 inventory. How about a 1222 and a 1410? So customer calls up, says I want a 1222 and I want a 1410, and I want 2 each. Then you'll notice I don't have shipping here yet. Why? Well, I haven't named a carrier. Let's try UPS. Code number 3 does the VLOOKUP. There it is. They get all that for a $7 shipping cost. You can double check it. UPS was six pounds. That's closer to 5, and so we got the $7, and they got a deal on the shipping. Maybe the Trailblazer 21's made out of solid gold or something. And there's the total cost. So it works. Again, we can change the UPS to FedEx and get a new calculation, $8.50. So once we have that, I'm going to take out FedEx. One thing about this is there is a tendency to instead of getting rid of FedEx, is hitting the delete on the 2. And you don't want to do that. Look what happened to my formula. I lost it all. So it's the data entry areas that you want to clear out, and only those. And you don't want to have anybody come over here and say, oh, I want to get rid of all this. Hit delete. Well, I just lost all my formulas. So you're just deleting these item numbers. As I said before, what you can also do if you really want to get advanced, and we do this in the advanced class, is you protect some of the cells. So like these cells here, in fact, even down here, I don't want anybody changing. So I can lock them out. So you have to have a password if you want to change them. And then I could do the same thing for all these here, because those are my calculations and my lookups. That way, the only thing they can enter is the item number and how many of each item, and all the way down. See how that would work? Oh, there was one other thing I wanted to test. Now that we got it all working, put those back in. Okay, so I said FedEx. This is working. What if the customer is not taxable? I'm going to go over here to taxable customer, take out the word yes, delete. Tax rate disappears. Tax disappears here, and it does the update. By the way, because I can't see the bottom of my invoice, I did an undo, Control Z, and a redo, Control Y, to test it, just to watch it happen. So right now I can see there's no tax. And then when I, Control Z to undo, there's the tax. And it is updating the math. So if you're using VLOOKUPs, as I mentioned, this is the way they mostly look. A big old long column of products, and like in this case, unit prices. You can also, as you'll notice here, calculate in the numbers. We did it with an HLOOKUP, but it could also have been done with another VLOOKUP table. Just kind of depends what you're comparing. So let me delete these out and get this ready to turn over to my ordering staff. And I'm going to take out the taxable yes. So any questions on if statements? They're also called if, then, else, because there's 3 points to them. So if something's true, do this. If it's not true, do that. And VLOOKUPs, and even HLOOKUPs, if you have any questions on HLOOKUPs. As I mentioned, both VLOOKUPs and HLOOKUPs can refer to text as well as numbers. The one thing that can be a little confusing is, like in the shipping here, you'll see we have column A, which is empty. When people try to figure out which column is it, sometimes they'll count column A. So they say, okay, this is 1, 2, 3. No, that's not. Our table starts here. So it doesn't matter where it sits in the sheet. It's where it starts with numbers. So it's over here in column B. On inventory, you'll see it's all the way over in column A. But again, it doesn't matter. It just happens to be A5 where it starts. So that's a common thing. If you're doing a VLOOKUP and you're keeping the tables on separate tabs, I like to have them all the way over to the left if I can. Sometimes you can't. Depends on what you're adjusting. You know, sometimes you're pulling out somebody else's numbers and they might have this in a formatted report of some kind. And you just have to, you know, make sure you get the right count. But if it's all me, I try to keep it as far left as possible. That way, the number of the columns matches the columns I can see from the left over. So that's one of my tips, if you can. Another trick you could do, let's say it's shipping, and I'm going to really quick create a new tab, and I want to call this shipping, Dan shipping, just to know this is mine. Here's what I could do. So I could take the shipping, and rather than copy it, because remember, if I copy it, that'd be fine, except someone might come along and update the numbers. I'll start here at A1 on Dan shipping, put an equal sign, come over here to the shipping tab, start at B4, and hit enter. Okay, there's nothing there, but I can fill handle it over 4 and down as many as I need. I went too far. To row 17. So see what I did? I generated a copy. Just real quick, I'll make this bold so it stands out a little more. And I can even get rid of A1. So it's an exact duplicate, and it automatically updates because they're linked. I use a 3D formula. Now when I do my VLOOKUPs, I can do it to this worksheet. If anybody comes along and needs to change the shipping, let's say the prices go up, when they update the prices here, so let's say UPS 5 pounds is now going to be $10. Mine and Dan shipping gets updated too. Now it's 10. And then when I do my VLOOKUPs, I do them here. So that way it's easier for me to read. Then when you're all done on Dan shipping, good old hide the tab. And nobody would know. So if you're ever dealing with a big table and it's stuck in a worksheet, I shouldn't say stuck, but it's embedded in a worksheet where there's a lot of stuff around it, could be a little confusing. And, you know, VLOOKUPs have enough headaches without having confusing text around. That's another technique you can use, and you can always, oops, I didn't need to do new sheet. You can always, let me delete this sheet, create a new sheet that links to it. And because it's linked, it's essentially, I just did it again, essentially the same thing with the computer. It doesn't care. I'm going to unhide. There's Dan shipping. And so this is very simple, straightforward. And if there's a lot of stuff around this, it won't matter because these cells are always updated here. It's to the computer, it'd be impossible for them to be different. If they were, it would crash Excel. So you never have to worry about that. So I'll get rid of Dan shipping because I didn't really use it. But that's another way to keep your tables clean and make them a little bit more manageable. All right. So, well, there's no questions on those. We are done for the evening. Tomorrow, we're going to do another little fancy Excel trick, and it's called pivot tables. And those are fun too. When you're dealing with lots of data, they can really help you just figure out what your data really means. And things like this, it's just a good way to handle lots of information. And you know, we are in the information age. So these are handy tools. On the other hand, they're not very common. And one of the reasons I think they're not very common, this is just my own theory, is that they're a little complicated. It takes some thinking, it takes some practice. And so people aren't aware that they can use them when they really might like to be able to use them. And once you learn how to use them, then you start using them all the time, just like the VLOOKUPs. All right. Well, if there's no questions, then we are done for the evening. Have a good rest of your night, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. And I hope you don't have nightmares about Vlookup formulas.